After that, Julian again attacked various tomb locations using his lightning. Everyone there panicked when they saw Julian coming, followed by his subordinates. Meanwhile, Julian looked sharply at those who were panicking because of his arrival. Meanwhile, in an office of the excavation team there, they reported the chaos caused by Julian with the rest of their team. They also began to discuss about Seo Joo-Heon, who did nothing, but they have not received news if Seo Joo-Heon will make a contract with them. Meanwhile, in another place, someone was seen giving the three of them a contract that they had to sign. The three of them seemed to read the entire contract carefully, and because it took too long, the man was impatient because he was facing a very critical situation now. But Seo Joo-Heon did not care about it because he also had to know what contract he would make with them. The man also showed his offer, which would be divided by 7-3, where the Seo Joo-Heon team would get a smaller share of the excavation team. Seo Joo-Heon thought the same thing as Seo, but the man was still angry because Seo Joo-Heon's team did not have many members and 30% would be enough for all of them. Seo Joo-Heon said that his team members were small, but his team would do most of the work. Seo Joo-Heon also asked the man to divide his share into 9-1, and it succeeded in making the men angry at Seo Joo-Heon. Meanwhile, another man came from outside the room because they did not finish the contract. The man who had just entered was angry at Seo Joo-Heon because the condition of his team was also in a bad state after what Julian did. Seo Joo-Heon said that he would move immediately when they agreed to the offer given by Seo Joo-Heon, still wanting to keep the division as 9-1, and that made everyone there surprised. They also started talking about Seo Joo-Heon, who from the beginning did not intend to help them because of the unreasonable division. But they had no choice but to accept it because Julian would continue to destroy everything if he wasn't stopped. Seo Joo-Heon looked at them with a triumphant smile, after which the man agreed, and he said that Seo Joo-Heon should work as well as he promised. And in the end, they obeyed Seo Joo-Heon's request. After everything was done, Seo Joo-Heon's team left for the place where they were needed to help. Seo Joo-Heon and his team went straight to the place. Yoo Ji-ha, who saw the thick black cloud in front of him, became surprised and worried. Yoo Ji-ha also doubted if they could win against such a large amount of lightning. Meanwhile, at the place where Julian was, the flames were all over the place, and Julian ordered his subordinates to leave this place immediately. But before Julian could move, Seo Joo-Heon had called him from behind and came to him with Seo, after which they faced each other. Seo Joo-Heon also asked the reason why Julian wanted to rob a small camp like this, but Julian defended himself if he had done the right thing, because the Union Army was very detrimental to the people of his community. But Seo Joo-Heon said that he would still stop Julian even though he agreed that the Union Army contained useless people. Angry, Julian attacked Seo Joo-Heon with his lightning bolt, but Seo Joo-Heon was able to dodge it easily. Julian continued to attack them while hurling his annoying words at Seo Joo-Heon, and Julian, who had been consumed by his anger, unleashed more of his power and prepared to attack Seo Joo-Heon. But Seo Joo-Heon managed to take out one of his protection relics, and as he used the relic, a house slowly woke up and protected the two of them inside. After successfully withstanding Julian's attack, Seo Joo-Heon called Yoo Ji-ha to carry out his next plan. After that, Yoo Ji-ha used the Van Gogh relic and took out a lot of women there. The women asked where Seo Joo-Heon was, and Yoo Ji-ha immediately directed them all to the place where Seo Joo-Heon was. Previously, Seo Joo-Heon had collected several women by using the Casanova relic to seduce them and collect them into the Van Gogh relic. And after doing all that, when they were removed from Van Gogh, they would come to the place where Seo Joo-Heon was, while on the other hand, Julian appeared to be bombarding the house of Seo Joo-Heon using his lightning. Shortly after that, a speaker appeared on the roof of the house. and heard Seo Joo-Heon speaking to Julian through the speaker. Seo Joo-Heon tried to provoke Julian anger and mocked Julian, and hearing all the mockery he received, Julian again attacked Seo Joo-Heon with his full strength. Thanks to Julian's anger, the roof of the house slowly collapsed, and now they were a little sorry for provoking Julian before. But all that was necessary to carry out his plan. Seo Joo-Heon only made a little time until the women arrived at his place. As what Seo Joo-Heon said, Julian's subordinates began to see many women coming towards them. Julian's team tried to stop them, but the women did not care and instead fought the person who stopped them. Julian, who realized the arrival of many women to his place at this time, became upset because he could not let the women be in danger. When Julian accused Seo Joo-Heon for the arrival of the women as one of his plans, Seo Joo-Heon did not want to answer him, and only said that there might be a meeting between neighbors here. After that, Seo Joo-Heon intended to carry out his attack on Julian. Seo Joo-Heon's plan went well as she saw that the women had arrived, and as Seo Joo-Heon expected, Julian did not attack her anymore because of the many civilians around her. And when Seo Joo-Heon came out of her house, she saw some of the women she had hypnotized before calling out her name. Seo Joo-Heon told them to be quiet and not move a step. Julian looked annoyed at Seo Joo-Heon, who used a plan like this to stop him. After that, they returned to face, and Seo Joo-Heon challenged Julian to attack him. But when Julian was about to attack, the sound of Indra's relic was heard. Indra looked happy because of the many women present here now. Meanwhile, Seo Joo-Heon, who saw Julian arguing with Indra, smiled happily because there was a story that said that Indra really liked women. Seo Joo-Heon also provoked Indra to rebel against Julian. Julian, who realized that he had fallen for Seo Joo-Heon's plan, became annoyed when Seo Joo-Heon still didn't want to admit everything. Instantly, Indra let out his lightning aimed directly at the women. Julian held back his lightning with his strength. Indra, who saw Julian holding back his attack, became angry and told Julian to get out of his way, but Julian still refused, and that made Indra very angry and attacked Julian with his strength. Julian was seen lying on the ground hard after he received an attack from Indra. Seo Joo-Heon, seeing Julian lying down, carried out his next plan. He asked the women to seduce Julian. At first, the women refused, but after they heard the prize they would receive, which was a date with Seo Joo-Heon, the women without hesitation rushed towards Julian and seduced him. Julian was having a hard time as the women started to seduce him. Meanwhile, Seo Joo-Heon took his cell phone and he filmed Julian, who was still surrounded by the women. He intended to send it to the reporter, and after that, he saw Yoo Ji-ha, who came towards him. Seo Joo-Heon also said that their plan was a great success because Seo Joo-Heon managed to stop Julian, who continued to attack by using the women as his shield. But Julian also released a little of his strength and made the women faint. Seo Joo-Heon did not expect that Julian would be so good at controlling his strength. Seo Joo-Heon just smiled at how great Julian was with his relic. After that, Julian came to Seo Joo-Heon, and he prepared to attack again. Seo Joo-Heon then told Seo to take care of his subordinates while he began to take out the relic that he would use to defend himself. Seo Joo-Heon challenged Julian to attack him, even though Seo Joo-Heon knew that Julian had used so much of his strength to suppress Indra's relic that was about to explode. And it seemed that the expression on Julian's face said that what Seo Joo-Heon said was true. Julian jumped up and started attacking Seo Joo-Heon with his punches, but Seo Joo-Heon managed to hold him back with his shield. Even though Seo Joo-Heon didn't, why his relic shield protested so often when he used it. Julian continuously attacked Seo Joo-Heon with his punches that only Seo Joo-Heon could withstand using his shield relic, even though Seo Joo-Heon had to be pushed a few steps because of the strength of Julian's punches. Julian, who saw Seo Joo-Heon only continuously avoiding his attacks, began to get annoyed. But Seo Joo-Heon said that he had attacked Julian all this time. At that time, the relic Bayan Kangso had successfully attached to Julian's back. He was very happy because in the end, Seo Joo-Heon used it as a relic. The relic would start his attack, but Julian still tried to get rid of the relic from his back but never succeeded. Although Seo Joo-Heon was sure that the relic would not work with Julian, Seo Joo-Heon was sure that Indra would do something different, and sure enough, just like what Seo Joo-Heon said, Indra began to lose control because of his desire to play with the women there. Julian still tried to resist Indra's power with everything he had, but Indra refused and attacked Julian back. Seo Joo-Heon just looked at Julian, who still refused to do Indra's wishes and held back his strength as best he could not lose to Indra. After a while, Julian, who tried to suppress Indra's power, he finally exploded with a dazzling light. Seo Joo-Heon, who saw it, immediately ordered the relic rope to restrain the movement of Indra from the body of Julian. Indra did not accept what Seo Joo-Heon did. Seo Joo-Heon also made an offer with Indra and promised if Indra would be introduced to another woman by Seo Joo-Heon, if Indra let Seo Joo-Heon talk to Julian. Indra agreed to the offer. Seo Joo-Heon also asked Julian to admit his defeat in such a sad way. Seo Joo-Heon also gave a little knowledge where Julian should use the power of dominance when he wanted to use a relic that had different properties from him. Julian asked if Seo Joo-Heon was going to kill him, and Julian asked that if Seo Joo-Heon was going to kill him, then he asked that his subordinates be released, but Seo Joo-Heon had no thoughts of killing Julian, and surprisingly, Seo Joo-Heon offered a contract and made Julian sign it and work as one of his subordinates. Julian was surprised when he read the contract while Seo Joo-Heon was proud of his generosity, but Julian rejected it angrily because the contract was very unfair to him, because it was the same as making Julian a slave of Seo Joo-Heon. Meanwhile, Yoo Ji-ha and Seo-Ah, who saw the slave contract, just grimaced seeing Julian also had to get the same contract as them. Julian also preferred if Seo Joo-Heon killed him rather than he had to sign a contract that only harmed him. But Seo Joo-Heon rejected Julian's idea because he still had other plans to make Julian sign the contract. Seo Joo-Heon then showed the photo he had taken earlier when Julian was mobbed by women, and threatened him if he would make the photo on the news later. And Seo Joo-Heon also had a photo when Julian made the women faint. Seo Joo-Heon also smiled slyly at Julian and asked him to think about his offer again, and hearing the salary mentioned only made Julian even more annoyed with Seo Joo-Heon. In the end, Julian signed a contract with Seo Joo-Heon, and there was a grim and sad face of Julian when he signed the contract. Seo Joo-Heon said that working with him was not as bad as he thought. But Julian did not understand why working with a criminal like Seo Joo-Heon was not a bad thing. Seo Joo-Heon did not accept that she was labeled as a criminal, and the rope relic agreed with her that Seo Joo-Heon was not a criminal. Julian also said that the Union Army was filled with disgusting people and they were also not too weak to be ignored. Seo Joo-Heon also asked Julian to explain what the Union Army was. Julian explained that the Union Army only looked like an ordinary team that collected relics, but they had other intentions in it, and it could potentially make them like Pandora. And the main character of the Union Army was Wade, who used the Gobble's relic. Seo Joo-Heon, who knew that Wade used the relic, made Julian happy, because Seo Joo-Heon began to understand it. Then Julian said that their main goal was the Hitler relic. because the combination of the Hitler and Gobble relics would create a great power, and they would use the relic to surpass Pandora. Seo Joo-Heon is now starting to realize everything, and he also asked the rope relic to release Julian from his bonds. Seo Joo-Heon also said that he was not too involved with the Union team, because actually Seo Joo-Heon only used them to get the information he wanted. And Seo Joo-Heon also said if he didn't like the way Pandora grouped him as one of their king, but Julian still didn't believe what he heard from Seo Joo-Heon. Seo Joo-Heon also persuaded Julian if he would soon betray them later. Seo Joo-Heon would do it by taking the tomb that the Union team wanted around here. After that, they all arrived in front of the tomb, and the original plan was that Seo Joo-Heon would complete the tomb together with the Union team, but Julian still did not understand why Seo Joo-Heon would betray them. Seo Joo-Heon only said that it was his original plan to betray them, because after they discussed the division of pay, Seo Joo-Heon could be sure that the Union team would betray him too, and Seo Joo-Heon felt that now taking the first step to betray them was the thing he should do, because Seo Joo-Heon was sure that the Union team must think that he was fighting with Julian. Therefore, Seo Joo-Heon would take this opportunity and move towards the tomb. After their car approached the tomb, it seemed that Julian had realized that this was not the entrance of the tomb, but Seo Joo-Heon never passed the entrance to go to the tomb, and with that he threw the relic and exploded it, making a large hole in the tomb. While Julian still couldn't believe that Seo Joo-Heon could easily throw and destroy the relic like that, Julian said that Seo Joo-Heon shouldn't do that, but Seo Joo-Heon didn't see any law that prohibited him from doing this. Before they entered, Seo Joo-Heon received a phone call from Wade, who lost him when he tried to help Seo Joo-Heon. Seo Joo-Heon only said that Julian ran away and he was still trying to hunt him down. Seo Joo-Heon didn't understand why the news about him reached Wade's ears so quickly, but Seo Joo-Heon didn't care about that and he entered the spear. After successfully entering the tomb, Seo Joo-Heon used his flashlight to illuminate the dark room in the tomb and walked slowly. Although this tomb was large, but Seo Joo-Heon was not sure if this tomb was one of the 7 great tombs, because the tomb should have a trial that must be completed first before they can enter. Even after Seo Joo-Heon read the tomb glyphs on the wall, no one said anything about it. Seo Joo-Heon looked annoyed when Julian asked about his ability to read tomb glyphs. And the more they walked away, they all reached the entrance of the tomb, as there was only an ordinary building inside, and Seo Joo-Heon, without hesitation, threw back his relic to make a way inside. Julian, who saw the explosion, was surprised and annoyed at Seo Joo-Heon, and after that, they all walked leisurely while avoiding traps and just taking the necessary path, even though every time Seo Joo-Heon exploded his relic, Julian was always noisy about it. But Seo Joo-Heon tolerated it because maybe it was the first time for Julian to finish the tomb in this brutal way. Yoo Ji-ha was getting doubtful because the place they came to was getting dirty, but Seo Joo-Heon said that this tomb belonged to a plague relic and that's why this tomb would get dirtier the more they got into it. Julian asked again about Seo Joo-Heon's great ability to guess the type of tomb, but Julian felt strange because his power could not be used in a place like this. Seo Joo-Heon, who heard that, was also surprised because the Zhuge-Liang relic could not be used. Realizing something was wrong, Seo Joo-Heon returned to explore deeper and deeper. After walking deeper, they arrived at a large room with a well in the middle. Seo Joo-Heon knew that he would use that place to summon his relic, but they had to be quick now, so Seo Joo-Heon chose to blow up the well using his relic. After that, there was a sound and the monster from the relic emerged from the well, but it seemed that they were surrounded by the number of monsters that began to arrive from all directions. Slowly, the disgusting relics all came out and Seo Joo-Heon intended to burn them all and destroy them, and after the attack from Seo Joo-Heon managed to hit the monster. A notification window appeared saying that if the relic with the chairman level was angry and made the tomb would be regenerated. Slowly, the relic that had been destroyed by the attack of Seo Joo-Heon before began to gather again. Seo Joo-Heon was confused by the notification window. Then an earthquake occurred in the tomb, after which the notification window appeared again if the relic belonging to the king of propaganda was watching him now. Seo Joo-Heon did not know what was happening, but he assumed that the relic was working with Wade. After that, a lot of disease-spreading monsters appeared and attacked them. Seo Joo-Heon realized that he had fallen into a trap, and they also saw that their surroundings were surrounded by a lot of monsters there. Seo Joo-Heon waited until the person who trapped him came out of hiding. Will they all survive? Who is Seo Joo-Heon referring to? 1.